The cold crept into her bones long before the hunger did, and as the neon lights of the small roadside diner flickered against the dark winter sky, she wondered how a life could shrink so quietly into a single moment like this. New Year's Eve, the world rushing toward celebration, and she sat alone at a corner table with 3 crumpled dollar bills in her coat pocket, calculating whether hope itself could be stretched as thin as a bowl of soup. Outside, the wind howled like it was mocking her, reminding her that time was moving forward even if her life felt stuck in reverse. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet miracles that can happen when strangers cross paths, take a moment right now to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this exist because compassion still exists. The woman's name was Clara, though few people said it anymore. Once, years ago, her name had been called in offices and classrooms, written neatly on attendance sheets and paychecks. She had been a caregiver at a small private clinic, the kind of job that never paid much but gave her a sense of dignity. Then her mother fell ill, slowly at first, then all at once. Clara spent her savings on medications, missed work to sit by hospital beds, and told herself it was temporary. By the time her mother passed away, the job was gone, the apartment was gone, and most of the people she thought were friends had drifted away. Unsure what to say to someone whose grief made him uncomfortable, Winter had a way of stripping everything down to the truth. On that night, the truth was that Clara had exactly $3 to her name until the new year came, and even then there were no promises waiting on the other side of midnight. The diner was not a place she would normally choose, but it was warm, and the menu taped near the counter showed one item she could afford, a plain bowl of vegetable soup, discounted for the holidays. She ordered it quietly, hands folded in her lap, trying not to notice the looks from other customers who wore clean coats and carried shopping bags full of celebration. As the soup arrived, steam rising gently, Clara closed her eyes for a brief second, not to pray but to remember a time when New Year's meant laughter, music, and tables crowded with family. She ate slowly, savoring each spoonful as if it were something sacred. The soup was thin, but it was hot, and for a few minutes it made her feel human again. Around her, the diner buzzed with movement, boots stamping snow from their soles, laughter bursting from tables where people talked about plans and resolutions. That was when the door opened again, letting in a sharp gust of icy air and a man carrying a tired child on his hip. The man was in his early 30s, his jacket worn but clean, his face marked by the kind of exhaustion that came not from a single bad night but from years of carrying responsibility alone. The child, a small girl wrapped in a pink scarf, rested her head against his shoulder, half asleep, her curls damp with melting snow. The single father, whose name was Daniel, had not planned to stop at the diner either. His car heater had given out weeks ago, and the drive home after his late shift felt endless in the cold. He worked 2 jobs, one during the day at a warehouse and one at night delivering groceries, all to keep his small apartment and a sense of normalcy for his daughter after her mother left their lives without looking back. That night, the little girl had asked for something warm, her voice barely louder than the wind outside, and Daniel had turned the car toward the glowing sign without thinking too much about what it would cost. As Daniel settled into a booth across the room, Clara noticed him without meaning to. There was something about the way he adjusted his daughter's scarf, the gentleness in his movements despite the weight he carried, that stirred something deep in her chest. She recognized that look because she had worn it herself, the look of someone who had learned to survive by putting someone else first. Daniel ordered for his daughter first, then for himself, counting bills just as carefully as Clara had done minutes earlier. He smiled at the waitress, apologetic for nothing in particular, and listened as his daughter perked up at the promise of hot chocolate. While they waited, his eyes wandered around the diner, not in judgment but in quiet observation, and that was when he noticed Clara. She sat alone, her coat still on, hands wrapped around the bowl as if it might disappear. There was a stillness about her that did not belong to someone simply enjoying a meal. It was the stillness of someone conserving energy, of someone who knew how quickly things could be taken away. Daniel felt a familiar tightening in his chest, a memory of nights when he had gone to bed hungry so his daughter could eat. of days when $3 would have felt like a fortune. As the minutes passed, Daniel's daughter fell asleep against the booth, her breathing soft and steady. Daniel watched her, then glanced again at Clara, noticing the way she avoided eye contact, the way she folded her napkin carefully as if manners were the last thing she owned. He did not know her story, but he knew the shape of it, the outline drawn by loss and endurance. When the waitress brought their food, Daniel made a decision that surprised even him. He asked quietly about Clara's meal, about whether she had ordered anything else. The waitress shook her head, understanding more than she said. Daniel nodded, pulled out his wallet, and added something to his bill without looking at the total too closely. It was not a grand gesture planned for applause, it was an instinct. The same instinct that had carried him and his daughter through years of uncertainty. Clara did not notice at first. She finished her soup and sat there, warming her hands, gathering the courage to step back into the cold. The thought of walking out into the night, of passing groups of people laughing on their way to parties she could not imagine attending, made her chest ache. She wondered if this was what the end of the year was supposed to feel like, a quiet accounting of everything lost. When the waitress returned, she placed a small plate in front of Clara along with a cup of coffee. Clara looked up in confusion, shaking her head slightly, trying to explain that there must be a mistake. The waitress only smiled and gestured toward Daniel's booth. Clara followed the motion with her eyes, meeting Daniel's gaze for the first time. He did not smile broadly or wave, he simply nodded, a brief acknowledgement that said more than words ever could. For a moment, Clara could not breathe. The simple addition of bread and coffee felt overwhelming, not because of what it was but because of what it meant. Someone had seen her. Someone had decided she was worth an extra kindness on a night when kindness felt in short supply. Her eyes filled, and she looked down quickly, embarrassed by the sudden rush of emotion. She ate slowly again, tears blurring her vision, the warmth spreading not just through her body but through a part of her she thought had gone numb. She thought of her mother, of the lessons about dignity and generosity passed down even in poverty, and she realized that this small act was not charity but recognition. Daniel watched quietly, his daughter still asleep beside him. He felt no need for thanks in that moment. Giving was as natural as breathing. He paid the bill, bundled his daughter up, and stood to leave. As he passed Clara's table, he paused just long enough to place a folded piece of paper beside her plate. Then he was gone, the bell above the door ringing softly as the cold rushed in again. Inside the folded paper was not money, though Daniel had considered it. Instead, it was a simple note with the name of the community center where he volunteered on weekends, a place that helped people find temporary work, shared meals, and sometimes just listened. It was not a promise, but it was a door. Clara sat there long after the diner began to empty, holding the note like it might dissolve. She did not know if she would have the courage to go, but for the first time in months, the future did not feel like a blank wall. It felt like a narrow path, difficult but visible. In the days that followed, Clara found herself replaying that night over and over. On New Year's Eve, she walked past the community center, then walked back, then finally stepped inside. The smell of coffee and the sound of voices wrapped around her like a blanket. She signed up for a cleaning shift at a local office, temporary work that turned into something more stable. It was not a miracle that fixed everything at once, but it was a beginning. Months later, on another cold evening, Clara returned to the same diner, this time with a paycheck in her wallet and a quiet sense of pride in her step. She ordered soup again, not because she had to, but because she wanted to remember. As she sat there, she thought about how close she had come to disappearing into the cracks of the city, and how one small kindness had pulled her back into the light. She never saw Daniel again, though she sometimes imagined him driving through the winter night, his daughter warm beside him, carrying on as he always had. But his presence stayed with her, a reminder that even people who are barely holding on can still lift someone else. Just before this story ends, take a moment to comment below what kindness means to you, or share a moment when a stranger changed your life. Your words might be the hope someone else needs. As the year turned and life moved forward, Clara learned something she carried with her always, that dignity can survive even the hardest nights. and that generosity does not belong only to those with plenty. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that compassion still exists in quiet places, please like this video, share it with someone you love, and let us know in the comments. Sometimes, all it takes to change a life is $3, a bowl of soup, and the courage of a single dad who chose kindness when no one was watching.